Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Supporting Arkansas Schools, an overview of the Trauma Resource Initiative for Schools, TRIS program. My name is Laura Landers, and I'll be your webinar moderator for today. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know a little bit more about our ARBEST program and do some housekeeping announcements. Arkansas Building Effective Services for Trauma, or ARBEST, is a state-funded program at the UAMS Psychiatric Research Institute, and our aim is to improve mental health services for children and families who've experienced trauma. We work closely with multiple partners to build a more trauma-informed state, and we're probably best known for providing training to mental health professionals on treatments that are effective with helping children and families recover from trauma. A few housekeeping announcements. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can type them into our chat and we'll answer them as we go, or we can hold those for the very end. You can also just comment or respond if you would like and use the chat feature there. If you're interested in earning a CEU, just be sure to stick around to the very end and I'll have some more instructions for you on that. Don't forget to check out our ARBEST Facebook page and like us. We frequently post upcoming webinars, training opportunities, and other resources. And just so you know, this training is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube video after the webinar. So today we've brought together some really great members of our TRIS team to talk to you about the program. First is Emily Robbins, a clinical program manager for trauma care for ARBEST and TRIS. And then we have Allison Smith, a clinical psychologist at the UAMS Child Study Center, Elisa Wilburn, a clinical psychologist and assistant professor at UAMS, and Evan Williams, our trauma educator at TRIS. All right, with all those introductions, would you like to take it away, Emily?
Yes, so thank you everyone for joining us. We are so excited to share with you today our project, our Trauma Resource Initiative for Schools. And so if you could go ahead and progress to the first slide, we're going to get started. I want you to understand what our why is, why we do what we do, or why this initiative was important to us as a team. And so we know that almost 30% of Arkansas students have experienced at least one adverse childhood event. So you've probably heard the word ACEs. It's been out there in the community and there's been a lot of research on it. And what we know about Arkansas is that almost 30% of our students have experienced at least one. So that means when you think about a classroom, and this is really stretching it, but if you had a classroom of 20, I know that most classrooms are bigger than that. But if you had a classroom of 20, think about 5 of those kids, like maybe a whole row of desks that are lined up or a whole row of tables. At least that many kids in just one classroom, we know have experienced 2 or more of these events in their lifetime before they're getting to their middle school and high school age. And so we also know, as all of us that are going to be presenting today are clinicians, mental health clinicians, we understand and we've learned through our studies and through research and through our experiences of how trauma might impact a youth or a child as they grow. Certainly can impact in ways of developmental delays, problems in emotions or behaviors, seeing kids go from 0 to 60 and not really maybe understanding why, or school-related difficulties, their ability to learn, the way that they learn might be different. And so these are part of our whys of why we began to really look at how we can better support schools. Next slide, please. And so as you've already started to hear, when you hear about who we are and what our backgrounds are, we are a diverse group. And so part of TRIS is from our partners at First ECE, the early childhood side. And then there's ARBEST, which Laura also shared with you about what ARBEST is doing. And so First ECE had done a great job in the years past working in our early childhood centers and helping them to become more trauma informed, be more trauma supportive for youth and families. And so ARBEST joined with some of our First ECE partners, and we brought the expertise together to move this work into K through 12 systems. And so next slide, we'll begin to talk about how this even came to be. So you've heard our why, a little bit of our who we are, and now how did this happen? So in 2021, Blue and You, the philanthropic version side of the Blue Cross Blue Shield, they really had a passion and realized as students and staff, notice I said staff, not just the students. We acknowledge staff also went through some very difficult times. We all did through the pandemic. And so Blue and you wanted to find a way to support schools from a mental health perspective. And so, with our history at ARBEST of providing training and resources from a mental health perspective, we were able to collaborate again with our partners at Family and Preventive Medicine and come together to create the Trauma Resource Initiative for Schools. Now, we also had some other partners that we knew along the way that we had worked with, such as through SAMHSA grants and through our AWARE program. AWARE is a partner with the department, is within the Department of Education. And so we brought together a lot of stakeholders that all had similar passions on how best to support students and staff during difficult times. Next slide, please. And so what do we do? The Trauma Resource Initiative for Schools, we want to support schools and efforts to prepare, respond, and then recover from those traumatic events that we already know are happening out in the community. And so we're going to spend some time with you today explaining what that prepare looks like, what respond, and hopefully what recover looks like, and how we're supporting schools. And so as you have already heard through the dates, we are just finishing up our first 3 years of TRIS, and we have been embraced with schools. As a mental health clinician, I've learned the language of schools, how we call things, or what we might have said in the mental health world. I'm learning more of the school world and the education world. And so these are the 4 big columns of what we do for TRIS. So we have trainings, trauma trainings, and that is probably the biggest piece of what we have done in TRIS so far. We do have level 1 trainings where we're going to come in and we're going to do some very basic, what is trauma? What could it look like? How does it impact all of those pieces of development? Because in early 2021, we weren't gathering as much together in large groups. So we've been able to create these trainings to be virtual as well as in person. And you're going to hear more about those trainings from Evan, who is our lead trainer. And together as a team across the entire state, we have trained almost 10,000 school employees or school staff. Notice I didn't say teachers or principals, because when we go into these school communities, we want anyone and everyone who comes on your campus to be a part of these trainings, to be a part of the support system for each other and your students. So it could be the bus driver who's the first person to see that student in the morning when they get on the bus. It's maybe their school resource officer, which is the first person the child sees when mom or dad or grandma drops them off at school that day. Anyone who is a part of your school community, we want you to be a part of those trainings. Resource dissemination. There is so much out there, right? So if something is going on in your school or in your school community and you're trying to figure out from a mental health standpoint, how can I best support? There is so much out there. So for us as being mental health experts, what we would like to do is kind of be that middleman for you. Reach out to us and we're able to, maybe we already have connections through NCTSN, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, or maybe we've got colleagues across the country that have already created resources. Let us do that work for you and find the good, the solid, the resources, and let us be able to provide those for you. We are going to hear more later from Dr. Smith on what that looks like and what's upcoming, which is super exciting ways for you to have access to some of those resources. Consultation to administrators and counselors. So this is that when we do have those moments of experiencing those events in your school community. When these events happen, we want to be a support system for your leadership, and how can we best support you through those events? And you're going to hear also later in this webinar more details about what does that look like? What exactly do you do? How do we reach out to you? We're going to give you all of that information before the end of the hour today. And then the trauma care navigation. We know that not all mental health services are created equal. And that's something that I even learned once I was in graduate school and completed graduate school. There are expertise levels. There are expertise levels of mental health care as well. If I took my kiddo to see his pediatrician and they said, oh, there's something a little different about his heartbeat, we want to get that checked. I'm not going to go to the dentist to go get his heart checked out. And I thought a pediatrician could do everything, but he acknowledges there are experts in this area and we want you to get the best care possible. And that's very similar to when it comes to youth and then they experience trauma. There are experts who have received extra levels of trainings, and this is a passion that they have. And we want to make sure that those kiddos and families, when they have these events, and if they do need an extra level of mental health services, that we want to get them connected to the best possible. And so from our ARBEST side, that's where we have trained many clinicians across the state, and we want to help get these kids and families connected to the best services as possible. Okay, next slide. And I think now you're going to get to meet Evan, and he's going to talk to you more about our trainings.
Hey everyone, my name is Evan Willens. I am the trauma educator for TRIS. So my main function, including today, I'm actually coming to you live from Huntsville, Arkansas. I just got done doing one of our level 2 trainings here. So my main role is to be out in the community doing as many trainings as we possibly can. We love to be everywhere and anywhere we can be. Throughout the summer months are always our really busy time, but throughout the school year as well. So our first level 1 introductory training we've done all over the state in front of countless educators. It's called Supporting Students During Difficult Times. That training is really designed to make sure that all the people, all that staff community and the school community that we talked about understands what is trauma, what it looks like, what behaviors we might be seeing, how trauma impacts the brain and the body. And then we spend about an hour and a half or a little bit more than that talking about how do we start understanding and shaping resilience. Because we're not there to just tell people what the problem with trauma is. We're there to also start giving some additional strategies and tips and tricks of how they can best support kids that might be dealing with some of these challenges that maybe we know about, but maybe we don't know about. So that is our level 1 training. It's designed to be either in a 3-hour version or a 2-hour version. It can be done virtually or in person. I do always push for in person if possible, just because that gets more of that engagement. And I like to also push towards that 3-hour version if possible, because we can do a lot more discussion and more kind of experiential learning when we have a bit more time. But if time is an issue, we do have those versions as well. We also have the level 1 wellness series. We have organizational wellness that's really focused on administrators and how they can best support their staff through some of what's going on in this post-COVID era as well. And then we also have caring for ourselves, which is a trauma perspective on wellness for teachers, to teachers. How can we be supportive to ourselves and supportive to each other during this time? So those are all of our level 1s. Those 2 are designed to be in about the 90-minute range. So those are all level 1s. You can pick and choose any of those based on need. Once you've done that introductory training that's supporting students, you are opened up to start our level 2 series. As of right now, we start with enhancing emotional safety. All those level 2 trainings are 3 hours, and they dive really deeply into these big topics. How can we enhance emotional safety? How can we create and foster these good supportive relationships that can really promote healing and resilience? Then we have a self-regulation and co-regulation training and a decision-making training. Both of those, regulation and decision-making, can be profoundly impacted by a person's experiences with trauma. So those are really deep dives in how we can better support kids who might have some issues with regulation or decision making as a result of what's going on in their lives. If you go ahead and go to that next slide. So what I wanted to show you is how easy it is to schedule one of our trainings. So we try to put as few barriers. Remember, all these trainings are free. These are all grant funded. So once again, I say this all the time. I'm not a used car salesman. I'm not here to sell anyone on anything. What I can tell you is that I fully believe and am very passionate about this topic. So I would love for y'all to keep me on the road and keep me busy. I drove a long way to get to Huntsville today, and I was fine doing that because I really want to be out in the community doing these trainings. So you simply go to the website at tris.ar.org, and from there, you will see where you can start to schedule. So if you go to that next slide, that is just a list of that menu. So if you've never scheduled a training with us, you would choose one of those level 1s. Once again, the best one to start with is that supporting students, because that gets you ready for level 2. If you go to that next slide, it actually connects, and you can go ahead and click one more time. You just pick that one. It's going to connect you directly to my Calendly. And if there's a date that's open, as you see, there's open dates in blue. You simply click on one of those dates. You fill out a little bit of a questionnaire, and it will schedule you directly from there. And from there, I'll reach out. But if you have additional questions and you would like to get just more information, there's also ways to go and just ask us about, hey, I'd like to know more about scheduling one of these trainings. And then we'll reach back out and email with you. And then we can help you set one up at the right time. We've got additional questions of how you'd like to do it. We've done things where we've incorporated more than one training in one day for people. for co-ops, things like that. So if you're interested, now I will say that these trainings are scheduled in groups. So these are a minimum group of 10, and they can be up to whole schools, whole districts at a time, but they are minimum of 10. So if you go to that next slide, we have other ways to get some individual stuff. But I first want to just show you our reach so far. Emily mentioned this in her part. We have trained 9,800 so far, not including about 60 that were in my training today, and probably some that were in a training yesterday. And you can see kind of the breakdown. A lot of them are teachers, but we have all sorts of people that come. And that 76% of this in person, I will tell you, that's been probably 90, 95% over the last year and a half or so. So we've really geared towards in person when possible, but we also still offer those virtual, especially in the level 1 trainings. But just wanted to show you some of our reach. If you're in one of those regions and those areas that's shaded in white in there, please do advocate for us to come to those schools in those areas. But we've been to a lot of places, and we'd love for that to be an entire red map, like it's all Arkansas Razorback red by the time we get done with going with TRIS. We want to try to reach everywhere we can. If you go to that one last slide, I'm going to be talking about, there are some individual options. So while our trainings are geared towards groups, we have started doing a cohort model last fall going into the spring, and I was very excited to do this. So when we do this again, individuals can sign up and they can go through the entire series, starting with our level 1, going all the way through all of our level 2s. I believe it's about 18 hours worth of training. And at the end, you get a certificate that you completed this. You get the CUs for completing it, but you get a certificate for completing it. And we had such a demand. We were really originally going to be only doing 40. We had such a demand that we opened it up to 2 groups of a total of 74, but an 85% completion rate. We had all sorts of people signing up. So please be on the lookout for that. If you join the Facebook groups and whatnot, you will know when that next one is coming up and you can register for that. We're looking also to try to do an in-person option as well if possible. So we really look forward. I look forward to meeting a lot of y'all that are on this webinar when I'm able to come to a school that you work with or work at. I would love to be there. So thank y'all so much, and I will pass it along.
All right. Hi, everyone. So as Emily mentioned earlier in our webinar today, TRIS also disseminates and helps provide schools with resources across kind of a variety of situations. So for instance, TRIS can provide schools with information about how to support students following a death of a peer or a staff member. TRIS can also provide information about if there's a staff member who dies who had a really significant relationship with students in the school community. TRIS also provides fact sheets about what does traumatic stress might look like across kind of elementary and school age and high school students that are both educator and parent facing. So we kind of have both companion resources there. TRIS has also provided schools with kind of general information about what it means to be a trauma-informed school, and has even offered some kind of brief consultation about places that schools can start with this. Because as we know, building a trauma-informed school and kind of sustaining those practices is really a journey. It's not a destination. So there's always ways that schools can either strengthen or kind of modify the way that they do things to really support the students in their school community, as well as staff. As we know, there are often events that occur that impact kind of larger groups. So as many of you, if maybe not all of you, are aware, on March 31st last year, a massive outbreak of tornadoes struck 9 states across the country, from Arkansas to Iowa. And in central Arkansas, an EF3 tornado, right, with winds peaking at 165 miles per hour, hit while there was a lot of kids at school. And this event was undoubtedly devastating to a lot of Arkansas communities. So within a couple of days, TRIS was connecting with school administrators and counselors within the communities that were hit really hard by these tornadoes. And we were able to share resources on social media. And then the following week, TRIS also hosted a webinar on how to support students following the aftermath of natural disasters. So that's some of what you see here on this slide is around that time, sort of some of the information that we were able to disseminate about this event. TRIS recognizes that schools likely have a plan for physical safety, and that's often part of standard protocol to have some sort of procedure in place in the event of different things that might happen within the school. But there might be less planning on how schools might address the emotional safety, either kind of before or during or after a potentially traumatic event. So TRIS is really proud to be a source of support and provide resources for schools across the state. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so something else Emily mentioned earlier was our crisis consultation service. And so this is one of the great things about TRIS is that we have some folks on our team with clinical expertise in childhood trauma. So our crisis consultation team kind of serve as a thinking partner for school counselors and administrators who would like support in either developing a plan, strengthening their plan that they have, or maybe strategizing about how to best support the school community following a traumatic event that maybe has school-wide impacts. So this really involves thinking about how students, staff, and even families have been impacted by any given situation. By far, the most common reason for consultation is a sudden death of a student or staff member. And so the crisis consultation team has consulted with school personnel kind of around these events and has, again, kind of provided some general information, as well as helped kind of support a school's plan in response to these events. The crisis consultation team also has consulted with schools, though, on things like natural disasters, like I mentioned earlier, school shootings, and other forms of violence within the school community. And then TRIS crisis consultation team has also met with schools to provide information and kind of brief support in developing kind of more proactive plans for particular crisis situations that schools have wanted more information or support on. And I'm really proud to say that over the last 3 years that TRIS has existed, we have provided 134 kind of individual consultations across the state, which is awesome. So we really try to keep up with events that occur around the state, but kind of how this works is when a traumatic situation occurs, the Arkansas Department of Education connects school counselors and administrators to the TRIS crisis consult team via email. And within 24 hours, one of those team members will kind of provide some preliminary information and do a little bit of introduction on kind of what we could be helpful with. And then we sort of offer to connect in some way, whether that's over Zoom or over the phone. If we can do in person, we try, although sometimes that's not possible. But we try to connect as immediately as we can to provide some more information about their response plan. So as I mentioned earlier, this kind of might look like kind of discussing with schools how to communicate with staff and students and families about what has happened and really being thoughtful about what does the community already know and how does the school have that information. Being really careful and considerate about, in the event of a student who has died, what does the family want the school to communicate, and how does the family think the school can best support them? Really just kind of thinking through some of the nuances of those situations. We also kind of help provide some sample letters that the school can distribute to families to kind of keep them up to date as they're able to on situations. And then we also provide some fact sheets and resources, again, kind of about what does trauma look like in the event of a student or staff death. What might grief or loss look like in the short term? What might it look like in the long term? And how can educators kind of best support students at these different stages? Kind of the neat thing about our crisis consult team too is that we have scheduled 1 week, 1 month, and 3 months on our schedule to kind of check in with schools and kind of see if there's anything else that we can do to further support them. Oftentimes when things happen, there's new needs that arise that might not be something that happens at the initial consultation. And so we kind of had these periodic check-ins where we can then provide more support for any rippling effects. I do want to note that the crisis consultation service is not a crisis response team. That the members of the crisis consult team within TRIS are really more of a thinking partner to kind of help schools consider how to support their school community. So we do not provide kind of on the ground support at this time. We're more so just sort of thinking with schools about their plan and helping to strengthen that if that's needed. If you want to be connected to the crisis consultation team, you can also do that through the TRIS website. There is a consultation page that has more information about how to do that. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Allison, and we'll have time to answer some questions if there are any about Crisis Consult.
Hi, perfect. Thank you, Alyssa. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you all today and am appreciative of the introduction and all that people have shared so far about all the exciting things that are going on with TRIS. So I'm going to be talking about some of our new initiatives that we have going on and some of the new things that you may not be aware of if you were already aware of TRIS because they're newer. So the first one is that we have been able to partner with Blue and You to go work on expanding the AR Connect Now program. And so some of you may be aware of AR Connect Now, and some of you may not. But the mission of AR Connect Now is really to improve mental health and well-being of youth in the state. And really to provide outpatient mental health treatment through a virtual therapy clinic. But now we have partnered with that program to expand that and to include the virtual mental health clinic and also to provide education about mental health and activities to support mental health and well-being. And we also are seeking to support folks in getting treatment from high quality professionals or in evidence-based treatment models that would benefit their presenting problem. So now if you go to the UAMS Health AR Connect Now page, we've got this on this page. We also have some slides coming up that'll include some links and things. You can see that our website has really expanded and we have a variety of additional supports, educational options, and we're going to actually get into what's on this website and how it might be useful to you depending on your role and the things that you might be using it for. Perfect, thank you. So first, we expanded the AR Connect Now virtual clinic. So the AR Connect Now virtual clinic is continued. And so for those of you who haven't used this service before or aren't familiar with it, it is a 24/7 virtual mental health clinic that you can call anytime to schedule services. So we've listed the numbers up here. So we have 24/7 phone support for someone to chat with you and get some kind of general information. And then we also have virtual options for registration. So you can register for services by phone, and then you can conduct sessions by phone or by video. One thing to note is that we do offer services for children, but also for adults within this program. And then the goal of AR Connect Now is really to meet urgent needs within the community. And so once you place a call to AR Connect Now, the virtual clinic, you will get an intake call within 2 business days. So I will note that it's 2 business days, not 2 just general days. But you will get a call back and we can get you sorted out with speaking with someone. And then we can typically have your first virtual therapy session scheduled within 1 business week. So this is a quick way to get access to services. I will note that sessions are more time limited within the AR Connect Now program. And so typically folks see us briefly for more urgent needs or when they're needing to get connected to services. But then we fortunately have a care navigation service available as well. And so while you're participating in those initial outpatient treatment sessions, we have care navigators or care guides that can work with you or the families you're working with and collaborate with them on identifying a provider if they need longer term treatment that's in their community and available to them. I'll also note that care navigation doesn't just include obtaining additional mental health care, but we have care navigators or care guides that also help meet a lot of needs in the community. So they're able to connect people with resources for things like food insecurity or needing supports with obtaining medical care. Or housing. And so there are folks available to help assist with meeting those concrete needs that people might have in tandem with helping getting you connected to services in your community or telehealth services that would be able to be used within your community. And you can go to the next slide, please. Perfect. Thank you. So excitingly, we still have maintained the virtual clinic, but we have tacked on to that and added a number of resources and really expanded the AR Connect Now website to include not just treatment, but also information that folks might need when they are interested in seeking treatment, interested in learning about mental health, or interested in understanding how to support or build their own mental health and well-being. And so we have expanded comprehensive information about mental health for youth, for caregivers, and information that would be applicable to adults just wanting general mental health treatment information. So first, we have lots of information about common mental health conditions. So we often see, I'm a mental health provider, and so often in my practice, I see that there's a lot of information going around about different mental health conditions. And unfortunately, on the internet, that's not always a great place for that information because we can get lots of information that's not exactly right, or it's a little bit of a misrepresentation. And so we've worked together to provide high quality resources that really clearly lay out what different mental health conditions are. And we've also worked really hard to make those accessible to folks so that they would be readable and understandable to people with a wide variety of reading levels and across different ages. So you can navigate to our website and you'll see information about diagnoses like depression, anxiety, PTSD, that will include things like what are symptoms, how do you know if you're experiencing this kind of condition, and then if you're concerned about it, what do you want to do and where do you want to seek help next? Related to that, we also have some online screeners or questionnaires about mental health, where if somebody is concerned about that they have a mental health condition, or maybe the child that they love does, you're able to go to our website and complete a screener, and that will tell you information about different symptoms and will let you know, oh, maybe this is something to get more information about or to consult with your doctor. I will note that our screeners are not diagnostic, so they can't tell you if you have a mental health condition, but they can let you know how many symptoms you might have and how that might compare to other people in the population, and if it might be beneficial to reach out to a doctor or not. But of course, if you ever have any concerns about a mental health concern, please reach out to your doctor or mental health therapist or tell the families that you work with about that. Similarly, I'm super excited about our initiative to really develop some resources to combat mental health stigma within the state. I'm going to put a little caveat in here that we have some really exciting stuff coming in this area soon, but that's not quite up on the website yet. So please keep checking back and keep looking in because you're going to find some fun things. But we do have resources available about how do we really model fighting stigma in our state. If we want the next generation of youth to be more able to talk about their own mental health and to address mental health concerns, we have to model that as the adults around them and as their caregivers and as their teachers and as their therapists. And so it includes some information about that that you can either use or share with folks that you work with. And similarly, we've got a frequently asked questions page where we got together with mental health therapists and other professionals in the field and asked, what are parents asking you? What are the questions they have? And even asked some parents what questions they typically have for mental health treatment. And we have some answers to those questions and some guides that you can see on our website about things like, what are different terms for mental health therapists? Why do some people say therapist and some people say clinician? So you can navigate there and see different terms, different questions answered, and point families there if that would be beneficial to them. Similarly, we also have a number of resources to help support people in looking for treatment. So the first is we have a pretty comprehensive list of crisis resources. So this includes resources that you can obtain by text, resources that you can call into, and also different kinds of resources for different presenting problems or different communities of people. So that's a nice place to look if you're in need of any crisis resources or want to have a list that's accessible for those. We also have maintained the ARBEST therapy provider list. So we have linked to that. And so for those of you who aren't aware of that, we maintain a list of providers who have completed training in evidence-based treatment models through us. So that's in trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, or TFCBT, child-parent psychotherapy, or CPP, parent-child interaction therapy, or PCIT, and then cognitive processing therapy, or CPT. And so you can find some providers who have engaged in some training on that. And then we also link to other provider registries. For example, we have a link to the EMDR registry or the roster, where you can locate providers who've trained in that model if that's something that you're looking for in your community. And similarly, we still have the wonderful AR Connect Now clinic, which provides virtual treatment and is accessible to folks in the state of Arkansas. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so this slide, I love it, but I also know it might feel a little bit overwhelming. So please know you don't have to read it all. But really, this is just an example of some of the materials that we have in our build skills section. So a critical component of our expansion of AR Connect Now is we want to provide resources that really help people build up their mental health, whether they are struggling with a mental health condition or not. And so these are general healthy strategies, healthy activities, healthy treatment approaches, coping skill approaches that might be beneficial for anyone who just wants to improve their mental health. Kind of like you don't only exercise when you are physically hurting, you want to be exercising and moving your body all of the time. We want to be thinking about that with our mind and with our emotions and with our heart. And so these are some strategies that you can use either for yourself, or you can use for a team that you love, or you can use as a parent. So if you'll go to our build skills section of our website, you'll see that we have lots of really exciting options about addressing feelings, building relaxation strategies, the importance of sleep. I can't underscore how much that matters for everyone. And then also the importance of a healthy diet. And I will note there's a lot of really good information on there, and we are also continuing to add to this information. So I highly recommend, this is going to be repeated from me throughout my portion of this presentation, but please keep checking our website back. We are working on it diligently, and we're going to have a lot more to come in the near future on this. So you'll continue to see some exciting things. But we're going to give you a little sneak peek. So if you can go to the next slide, Laura, and then we can see if this video will play. Can you pause it just 1 second, Laura? My apologies. Oh, maybe it's going to pause anyway. Perfect, thank you. So just wanted to make sure that would play okay for y'all, but this is an example of some of the content we are generating as part of this new expansion of AR Connect Now, where we're trying to make interactive activities and videos that people can use either with their own children, with children they love, that teachers can use, that mental health professionals can use to help teach some of these skills that help build up mental health well-being and just overall functioning. And so this is one of our example videos, but we have a bunch actually on our website that is a box breathing technique. So if you're not familiar with box breathing, this is a mindful breathing technique that helps people pay attention to how they're breathing, helps them kind of slow down their body and their mind and their emotions and pay attention to the moment around them, which can be a relaxation strategy or can help people when they're feeling overwhelmed. So we're going to take just a second to watch an example video of this. Thanks, Laura.
Box breathing. When I need to calm down, mindfulness skills like box breathing help. I imagine a box and use it to pay attention to my breathing as I draw lines around the box with my breath. I breathe in for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, breathe out for 5, and hold for 5. Don't worry if your mind wanders while you are breathing. If that happens, just come back to focusing on your breath and the box. Let's try it. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. Breathe the box one more time. Notice how your stomach expands and deflates. On your own, you can breathe the box as many times as you need to.
Thank you so much, Laura. And then you can go ahead and go to the next slide. But that's just one sample of some of the videos that we have. So we have a video that usually talks about different kinds of coping skills. And then we have different videos that really outline actually doing those coping skills interactively. So if I don't know if you're like me, but a little bit of deep breathing was definitely welcomed on this Friday afternoon. So here is just the final slide I have. This is all the ways you can connect with us. So please feel free, check out the link. We would love for you to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. But you'll see that we're going to be continuing to generate lots of new resources and lots of exciting things over the next couple of years, actually. So please keep checking back. And we hope that we can be helpful in either supporting your mental health and well-being, supporting the mental health and well-being of the children that you love, or helping you support the families that you work with and you serve. But I think now I am going to turn it back over to Emily. I think you're muted, Emily. Just heads up.
Okay, I turned my camera on but forgot the mic. But yes, thank you for treating us with that video. I myself was practicing here in front of my camera as well, my box breathing. And so this is our final slide on how to connect with TRIS. So we're all housed in UAMS, but a little bit of two separate programs that are working together. But so we do have separate social media as well as the info. If you've heard anything today and you would like to, we are going to answer some questions here in just a second that are in the chat and in the Q&A. But if something comes up later that you think about, you want to ask, if you want to ask for resources, I think Alyssa had answered a question about that earlier as well. If you have something come up in your school community and you need some support, there's the email address there that you can reach out to us. Our Facebook page, as we mentioned, is really the quickest way for us to get resources out or advertise when that new cohort's going to start or anything that we've got going on, like webinars. That's going to be the quickest way for us to communicate. So if you'll give us a like and a follow there, that would be helpful. Laura, do you want to lead us through any of the questions, or how would you like to do this?
Sure. Our first question, Rachel asked, I'm a therapist with a school-based company that comes into the schools. Can I attend these trauma trainings?
Yeah, so I think maybe Evan answered it a little bit, but I'll just clarify a little bit when we go into the groups, when we go into schools to do the trainings, the way the trainings are generally created, it is for a school audience. So for an example, a lot of the examples or the discussions, it is mostly like teachers and school counselors, principals. If I, as a mental health clinician, went to some of those trainings, it may be very, very basic because it's mental health pieces that we might have learned or known. But as I mentioned, if we don't have that training in trauma, it could be very helpful. When we do our bigger trainings, we need at least 10 people to be in that audience. And that's because these trainings are very interactive. It all is very based on that community and what they bring to the discussion during that training. And so maybe your school, maybe you could advocate for us to come to your school where we could do this training. The other option is to be a part of our cohort. We did have some school counselors, school therapists, as well as school social workers that were a part of our cohorts. So if you are in an area or a school that you can't really get us there right now, or maybe PDs are already booked for this year, keep an eye out on the Facebook page and you can fill out an application to join the cohorts.
Great. We have another question. Where can we find the resources and fact sheets we talked about?
Yeah, so I put in the chat the link for the TRIS website. If you go there, there's a contact us with some fields. If you fill that out with kind of the specific information you're looking for, someone will get back to you with information. Right now, we don't have sort of a centralized place on the TRIS website with resources, but that might be coming sometime in the future.
Mm-hmm. And I think I saw that question come through, Alyssa, when you had that beautiful slide after the tornadoes with all of the resources. That is a screenshot from our social media. So if you go to social media and you scroll through some of our previous posts, we do post resources, links that are on the Facebook page. So if you were speaking specifically about those natural disaster resources that she had on her slide, those are on our Facebook page. So once you go there, kind of scroll through and you're going to see a lot of resources that have been shared over the past 3 years.
Thank you, Emily and Lisa. And then the last question is about the AR Connect Now services. And do they bill insurance and what type of insurance?
Yeah, great question. I am honestly not sure off the top of my head what insurances they all bill, but you are correct that they bill insurance, which is a shift from previously. So they do bill insurance, and then if you call the program, they can talk with you about the insurances that they take. And then if you have somebody who does not have insurance, they can meet with the financial office to talk about insurance enrollment or set up payment plans or things like that. So there are some options, even if somebody is not insured, or if they are struggling with financial resources. I'm also going to put an additional link here in the chat. So this is a page that we have within our AR Connect Now website that's been expanded. So if you scroll down on this page, we have a list of providers, which I didn't mention in the actual slide and would have been helpful, but we have a list of providers that are either community mental health providers, or they're providers who are contracted to see folks who do not have insurance. And so this is an option for folks who are maybe looking for services in their community, and either need to be seen at a community mental health center or do not have insurance available. And so that's an additional option to look through. And then I'll also note that AR Connect Now provides up to 6 sessions, and then that is where services stopped, and we would be connecting folks with other providers if they needed longer term treatment than that.
Great. Thank you so much, Allison. All right. If we have don't have any more questions, I just have a couple of things about CEUs. So, excuse me 1 second. So if you're interested in getting a CEU for attending this webinar, the code for today is 0908. After we're done here, I'll send out an email with a survey link to everyone who registered and attended today. And then you can just fill that link out with the code 0908 and your CEU will get automatically emailed to you. CEUs are only available to people who are watching this live. The formatting of the survey works best for a computer, not a mobile device. But if you're using a mobile device, please know that there's 5 options to choose from. So you'll need to scroll over to the side for some answers. And then I will just keep this slide up for a little bit as we wrap things up. Thank you again to all of our awesome presenters today, and be sure to check out all these resources that we provided today, and look at our Facebook page and sign up for email notifications. I think if we have, if anyone has any other questions, we can answer them, but if not, I think we are done.
Yes, Claudia, for the cohort, you do get CEU. So if you attend all of the trainings, it is about 18 to 20 CEU hours.
All right, great. Thank you everyone for coming to our webinar today. Mm-hmm.